Record. And just for a frame of reference, the last meeting we had was section 2.5, the function of the miracle worker. Today, we're doing section 2.5A, a subsection of 2.5, and we'll be going over the special principles of miracle workers. Just brief comment about that. If you're brand new to miracles or in your first year, just trying to understand these special principles would be a place to begin. If you've been with miracles for several years now, this is critical. These are principles for working miracles, and you really want to invest some effort into understanding this. And if you've been with miracles for many, many years, you want to have these principles so well known to your understanding that you carry them around with you. You've got it, and you're looking to practice it. So with that, we'll look at these 7, 8 principles together today. But there's an introduction here that comes from chapter 1. You don't need to read that because David will read it for you.
Some of the later steps in this course involve a more direct approach to God himself. It would be unwise to start on these steps without careful preparation, or all will be confused with fear. Healing is of God in the end. The means are being carefully explained to you. Revelation may occasionally reveal the end to you, but to reach it, the means are needed.
So let me pause you there, David. So by now, we should have some understanding of the means. There's the goal, which is the restoration of all creation to its divine union, creation and creator, the goal. But to get to the goal, one has to have the means or the method of getting there. And it should be clear by now that miracles are the means of correcting our perception so that we step forward in the journey. If we fail to correct our perception, we wind up returning back to where we were before, and there's a failure to make progress. So stepping forward through correcting perception is the means. And with that, we'll begin reading for today's material.
Special principles of miracle workers. The miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns. Since it is an out-of-pattern time interval, the ordinary considerations of time and space do not apply. When you perform a miracle, I will arrange both time and space to adjust to it. Okay, so each one of us is at our own level where we bring in a past learning and what we understand. So a miracle abolishes the need for being concerned, anxious, and preoccupied about basic routine, mundane issues without defining them. We'll just call them lower order concerns. There are things that are of no concern to your soul. They're just, and we all have these issues, but we do not need to be concerned and anxious, fearful and afraid as we go about those things. A miracle and working with miracle principles shifts the focus of the power of our mind into the arena of being helpful and helping to heal, functioning as a miracle worker. So it shifts your attention. And how does it do this?
Well, it's going to transcend the ordinary laws of time and space. It is an out of pattern interval of time. What is a miracle? It's an interval of time, but it doesn't reflect the past. It's out of pattern of the past. And ordinary considerations of how much time things would take are transcended in that. And Christ will rearrange the time and space to adjust so that the participants in the miracle can move forward in their journey, correct their perception, and correct the errors of their past, and take a step forward. So this would not ordinarily be completely transparent to people, but later on, have we covered it yet? So help me here, where we talked about the shift from a horizontal orientation to reality to a vertical orientation to reality. David, have we talked about that in this series since chapter 1?
Not that I'm aware of.
Susie's nodding yes. Okay.
It's to show how little my awareness is.
I'm counting on you, brother. All right. So we will talk about it again. It is, most of us go through life on what you might call chronological or clock time, day by day, minute by minute. Life seems to be measured by time and space. In a miracle, it shifts out of that pattern that we're so familiar with, and progress towards God becomes the fundamental measure. And time is not relevant to progress towards God, but what is relevant is your willingness to step forward and leave the past behind. And you cannot do these things intellectually or by yourself. We do these things in conjunction with Holy Spirit in the mind of Christ. So miracles are just that. They cannot be explained according to the ordinary laws of horizontal time. They make perfect sense when you view them as a vertical ascension towards God, where time and space does not matter. And all that really matters is that we grow closer and closer to divine union. By the way, we don't have a lot of words today, so there's plenty of opportunity for questions or comments. And the language, the terminology we will use to refer to this out of pattern time interval is a collapse of time. And I'll illustrate what I mean here by a true story about two sisters that did not talk for 20 years. They were stuck in their position. They didn't want to have anything to do with each other. They could not move forward. And then a miracle happened. And now they talk every week. And they care about each other, and they love about each other, and they're involved in each other's lives. Of themselves, they could not move forward. 20 years went by. But after the miracle happened, I haven't explained how that, it's not relevant in this context of how it happened, but it did happen. And now they're moving forward in their relationship and their love and their caring for each other. A miracle is an out of pattern time interval in which you correct the mistakes of the past and move forward with issues that otherwise would hold you back and keep you stuck. Sometimes we refer to the prison, the ancient prison of the ego. Okay, so that's principle number 1. David?
A clear distinction between what is created and what is made is essential. All forms of correction or healing rest on this fundamental correction in level perception. Another way of stating the second principle is this: never confuse right and wrong-mindedness. Responding to any form of error with anything except a desire to heal is an expression of this confusion.
Mhm. Okay, so we have two principles here. One is a restatement of principle number 3 is a restatement of principle number 2. And these principles speak to reality that exists on the spiritual plane. So you have to open your spiritual ears to understand that there is a clear distinction between what the Creator brought forth in creation, where he extended a part of his being into the sonship creation, and he did that as an act of love, and he loved what he brought forth, and the creation loved the Creator and one and each other, and there was perfection and union and perfect understanding. We call this the original state. That state has never changed. It still exists. There's a clear distinction between that and what our human minds are making of our time and our life here, which is clear and obvious that it's not completely loving, and that there are errors involved. In fact, whereas in the original state, there was perfect communication, unbroken conscious contact throughout all creation, in the current state, the communication has broken down, and this course is intended to restore that communication. So we need to be clear about those two states, what is created, what has been created, and what's being made by our human minds. And so we call it, so this brings us to the idea of healing our perception, healing any errors in our mind, all forms of correction, which in this program, when we say healing, we mean correcting the mind of its errors. All forms of healing rest on the recognition of this fundamental distinction between what is created and what's being made. If we fail to make that distinction, then we blur it. We blur the two, and we wind up believing that the original creation is somehow like what we're making here, or the inverse, we believe that what we're making here, I got myself mixed up there. We believe, one, that the original creation, it must be flawed and that it could not be perfect. Or we wind up believing that what we're making is perfect. And while the goal is to get back to the perfect state, the original state, we want to distinguish when our mind is not doing that, when it's entertaining fears and doubts and errors and judgments and separation, lack of love, emptiness, etc. So let's take another angle into approaching what we're talking about here. Another way of stating that principle is to not be confused in your mind between when your mind is in its right mind, which is to say when your mind is in accord with the light of the Holy Spirit, and you're allowing Holy Spirit to guide your understanding, to illuminate your consciousness. Never confuse that state with the wrong-minded state. And the wrong-minded state is the one that we've spent most of our time in this world in that state. So we know it very well. It's doubtful, uncertain, oftentimes feels like something's missing, like there's a lack of love. And that generates a sense of fear, which we then project outward into a world and then believe that the entire world is a source of threat to us. And it just spirals on and on down. Never confuse those two states of mind. This is fundamental principle to the miracle worker, is to distinguish these two states of mind. Matter of fact, if you went no further in this program than to become very clear between the difference between your wrong-minded state and your right-minded state, that would be a great learning in itself. And any effort to respond to error with anything less than a desire to help, to heal, it comes from confusion. So here would be an example. If you notice error in the mind of someone else and you analyze them, well, they had that error because when they were raised, they went through all this and everything. And your mind is just telling a story about their error. That would be a result, would be an indication that you're in a wrong-minded state, that you're not ready to offer healing. The miracle worker is solely motivated by the desire to help. And we will reaffirm that with, I think it's principle number 7 that we'll read today. All right, so I know there must be questions or comments. Before we go on, let's take a few comments. Susie?
I was just going to make the comment that I love the lower order concerns. I have that underlined from the past, and I have a little note up there that says, the physical world, which brings me to the sentence, correction and level perception. So it's right. So it's kind of incorporating the level confusion.
It is.
Yeah. So that was really helpful for me to read again. And I love the miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns. And that's just when I'm in my ego in the physical world, and I don't have to be concerned with that. I can't perform any kind of miracle because I'm in my, not right-minded thinking when I'm concerned with lower order concerns.
Right.
So I don't know. I just wanted to make that comment. It was really clear to me. And then I'm in level confusion.
Right. And you really have done a nice job, Susie, of emphasizing the role of level confusion here. I cannot say it enough. It's all over chapters 1 and 2 because it's foundational concept that when our mind is confused about the levels, then our mind is in the wrong-minded state, and we cannot function as a miracle worker in a wrong-minded state. We must learn with the help of the Holy Spirit to correct our minds, and that involves level correction. And know that all correction needs to occur at the level of the mind. Heidi?
As usual, I'm confused. Can you explain what the correction in level means? Like, what's level? The stage?
No, it's not stages of time. So the easiest way to enter into levels is to recognize the body level, the mind level, and the spirit level. That would be the introduction to level confusion. So spirit level being perfect, the mind being in split between the right mind and the wrong mind. This is where errors are made, Heidi. This is where confusion occurs. And the third level is the body level, which Susie just said is really relatively speaking, is a lower order concern. It's not the higher order reality. It's not where the work of progressing on the spiritual path occurs. It's more of a reflection of progress on the mental level, the mind level. So you might have missed the sessions where we talked about this. And if we have time at the end of today, Heidi, I'll go into it in more detail.
Thank you.
Because it is a big topic, but it was covered in some of the earlier sessions that you might want to check out on YouTube.
Okay.
Richard?
Hi, good morning, guys and girls.
Morning.
I rushed to get here. I didn't want to miss any more. It's so overwhelming. Last week I fell asleep during the course meeting because it's so intense, but it's so intimidating, but it's taken an effect on me. Spiritually, it's like right on, man. One of the things that was said earlier, and I remember hearing it once and I used it and I forgot it, but that was focus. A vertical focus is usually me, my intellect, and then there's horizontal focus, which is I'm in line with my higher power. And you guys said it, the level, the body, mind, and spirit level. When I speak from the gut, everything else falls in place. But if I try to start up in my intellect, like I've always been doing, it just doesn't seem to come out that way. Or spirit, I can be spirited in a how would I say it? In a grandiose way, I guess. But when I speak from the level of the gut, the other two fall right into place. One thing that's bothering me, but it's not bothering me as much, but I'm just going to show you the growth that this group gave me. The word God is so ambiguous that when it's mentioned, I go back to the God that I was programmed with, or some type of
Right.
terrorist Muslim, a terrorist. I've hung out with some of them. Take my word for it. It can be rough. But when I get to the level of gut, where there is no kind of heading or no kind of, I wish if I had a choice, what I would do, I would abolish every capital letter. Just get rid of it. That's just me. But when I get right, what you talk about right size, and I'm in my gut, then this program, when I say program, this course,
Mhm.
It all just falls in place.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can't do this course with I can't stop just at my intellect.
Mhm.
It's got to go from up top down in my gut.
All right. Thank you, my brother.
So I don't know if I'm, I'm looking for some type of an approval, like, hey, right on, like something like that. But
All right.
thank you.
Well, hang on afterwards for that. Thank you, Richard. Noel?
Good morning, everyone. Maybe gut is a synonym for spirit, heart. I don't know if that helps, Richard. But the other thing I want to say is in principle 3, with anything except a desire to heal,
Mhm.
would that be accepting the atonement?
A desire to heal, accepting the atonement results in a desire to heal. So yes, there is a link to that. And in the absence of atonement, then we wind up substituting other agendas, Noel, and other than the agenda to heal, as self-appointed agendas. Yes. So you're right that accepting the atonement then results in our wanting to help others become part of that healing. Thank you. All right, let's go on to number 4.
Never confuse right and wrong-mindedness. The miracle is always a denial of this error and an affirmation of the truth. Only right-mindedness can correct in a way that has any real effect. Pragmatically, what has no real effect has no existence. Its effect then is emptiness. Being without substantial content, it lends itself to projection.
So earlier I said, if you've been with miracles for a few years, you really want to carry these principles around in your pocket. You want to have them down, the distinction between right-mindedness and wrong-mindedness. Therefore, the miracle always has 2 phases. One is it looks on error and simply denies the validity of that which is mistaken, that which is guilty, judgmental, and fearful. It simply acknowledges that it has no meaning for you. And having done that, the mind then turns towards truth and affirms the truth. So let me make a subtle point here. I got confused for a number of years in that I got into the habit of recognizing the error and denying the error, but failed to embrace the truth. Well, this creates issues because what I was really doing is making a judgment of what was wrong and not going any further. And can you see how that's not really progress? I was just practicing noticing errors. And I thought I was practicing the course. I mean, I clearly was mistaken. So what we want to learn is that errors are not realities in themselves. They are what you might call lower order concerns. They have no real effect into life. They do not help us move forward. You can view it as errors are just empty thinking, mistaken believings and feelings, and therefore are without substantial content. There's no love to be found in repeating errors again and again. And when that happens, the mind winds up, if the mind continues to attend to the error, it winds up projecting it onto the screen of your belief system. It becomes part of your view of how you see the world in that moment. And that is what we call false projection. It's believing that your own illusions are true. And so now and most people in the world invest a great deal in that, believing that their own projections of the errors of their mind are real and true. And so this is not healing. This is a state of wrong-mindedness. And going back to principle number 3, we need to learn to distinguish when we're in our right mind and our wrong mind. Otherwise, we wind up believing the projections of our wrong mind. We believe that our errors, our illusions are real. And that's complete confusion. That's what we're trying to learn to correct here. So, and it comes back to this principle we said earlier, that the sole concern of the miracle worker is to distinguish truth on the one hand and error on the other. Failure, so that's the truth. Failing to distinguish the truth from the error, it is level confusion, and it is confusion. And so these are really the fundamentals. The place that the Course would help us go in our spiritual journey is anchored on the fundamental principles which have to be righted before we can climb higher on the spiritual ladder. So, learning not to confuse right-minded and wrong-mindedness, and then when we observe wrong-mindedness, not to become preoccupied with it, not to make a story about it, but only to respond with a desire to heal, period. David, you comment?
Yes, this just struck me. We've been talking about horizontal and vertical and the ladder and the truth and creation and effect. And what became just jumped out at me, which is something in this program, is that if I'm not in complete right-mindedness, I can do a lot of things that I think are right-minded, but I'm basically climbing up the wrong ladder, if that makes sense. And I think I'm climbing up the ladder, but it's the ladder of illusions that I'm right-minded. And this is really, really good for me to be listening to this today, because I recognize again and always that I have to be willing to listen to the Holy Spirit to be guided into right-mindedness. It's not something David can create.
Yeah, no, I thank you especially for that last comment, because if we're climbing up the wrong ladder, somehow we've appointed ourselves to climb that ladder. It wasn't guided by the Holy Spirit. Thank you, David. Kim?
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. So I am to the point where I can tell when I'm in wrong-mindedness. And so my temptation when I'm in wrong-mindedness is to try to correct myself. And so there's something that I've been doing recently that has helped me a lot. And it's around this, anything except a desire to heal. And so here is kind of what I do. And I call these things like blanket thoughts or statements, because when I get into wrong-mindedness, I can go through the whole story beginning to end, and it never ends well. And sometimes I can spend hours and sometimes even maybe a few days doing this. And so here's what helps me. I say to myself, if it's happening to me, it's happening for me. And this is my opportunity to receive healing. And that just kind of begins the change process. And sometimes it can be hours and sometimes even days for that to happen, but it eventually does happen. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Yeah, so part one is to recognize the difference between right-minded and wrong-mindedness. And once you've done that, we can learn how to get out of that wrong-minded state. That's another lesson. First, we need to distinguish when we're in it and that we need to ask for help for the Holy Spirit. And then second lesson, we need to learn how to unhook ourselves from that train. Susie?
Yeah, I can really identify with what Kim just said. I always know now, I mean always, when I'm in wrong-mindedness. For me, it's just a matter now, and it's just practice. It's practice, 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 practice of denying, the good use of denial of the ego. And like Kim said, for me too, you know, I have this one voice that says, you're not in right-mindedness, you know where you are, you know, and I have this other side saying, Holy Spirit, you know, please help, I know, but I have my ego that is so strong, trying to pull me. So I have come to accept that it doesn't always happen, like Kim said, in that moment, but it happens more often, quicker for me if I just keep denying, and turning my cheek, as it says in the Course, to the Holy Spirit. But it's a journey, it's a process, but it goes back to that same word, willingness. Just have to keep every day becoming more willing, and then the Holy Spirit does her job if I'm doing mine.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Noel? You're muted, Noel.
Thank you both. Sometimes I get caught up in the wrong-mindedness and start lamenting. Why didn't I do this before so that I wouldn't have this now? Why can't I do X, Y, Z now? Why shouldn't I? What's stopping me? All of that kind of stuff. And it really is, as you said, Susie, practice and discipline for me. It's disciplining my mind to not stop with the wrong-mindedness, but to fill that space with the right-mindedness, which is any affirmation, any repetition of principle, it seems to me, anything also that comforts me from either the text or a passage in the workbook. And I really have to keep reminding myself of what the right-mindedness is.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, Noel. And it says in another place, and you just said it, it's not so much not to stop the wrong-mindedness as to find your way back to the right-mindedness. And the Course says in another place, we need to learn to fall in love with our right-minded state. Because unless you love it, you won't embrace it completely. You might do it out of a duty to escape the discomfort of wrong-mindedness, but the way to really dedicate yourself is to fall in love with that state, to love the feelings that come about as a result of being in the right-minded state. And so that you fully embrace it and make it a new habit, which brings us to number 5.
The level adjustment power of the miracle induces the right perception for healing. Until this has occurred, healing cannot be understood. Forgiveness is an empty gesture unless it entails correction. Without this, it is essentially judgmental rather than healing.
I still remember years ago when I read this sentence with understanding, and I almost fell out of my chair, that it says forgiveness without correction is an empty gesture. And without correction, forgiveness is essentially judgmental rather than healing. And so that got my attention. So what's it mean? We must pair two phases of the experience together, for if we only have one of them, it's inadequate. Forgiveness is a recognition of the error of wrong-mindedness and a willingness to let it go. Noel spoke about lamentations. To lament something is to hold on to it and to keep focusing on it. Forgiveness is to give it over. Say, Holy Spirit, this is what was going through my mind, but I'm happy to let it go. So forgiveness is the first step. That does not lead to correction. That leads merely to emptying your mind of the focus on the error. That in order to heal, we must correct our mind. We must move forward. And that can only be done in the presence of joining with the Holy Spirit. You cannot, as David said, otherwise you'll choose your own ladder to climb. And you're fooling yourself thinking that you've got it figured out, that you know where to go. So correction is fundamental. And this has to do with level perception, in that when we're in the wrong-minded state, we're confused about where to find our true self, where to find life, where to find love. And so our mind is focused inappropriately on a content of a lower order. And so what happens is we need the miracle to come along and help us to change our focus, change our awareness. Until this has occurred, healing cannot be understood. You cannot heal until you learn to shift from that wrong-minded state to the right-minded state. I got two more comments here that are side notes here that we've read earlier in the textbook that I think relate very well. One is you need to learn to deny your mind of its destructive potential, and lamenting and reviewing the past and feeling guilty or blaming others or being anxious and afraid of the past repeating itself are not denying. They actually are reaffirming. So we need to learn to deny our mind of any destructive potential and reaffirm its purely constructive powers. That's how you undo level confusion, is your mind was created for love and for creation and for peace and for joining, not for harm, for fear, for judgment, for guilt. And then we read before that all, and I think it's obvious in this context that all this has to be done at the mind level. We cannot correct at the behavior level and expect to truly heal. We must correct the way we perceive these things, and then the behaviors will follow. So let's take some comments. Susie?
I love that you reminded us, Jonica. We talked about this a lot last year, that we need to fall in love with right-mindedness. We haven't said that in such a long time, and that just really resonates with me, because when I'm really in love with feeling right-minded, that's when I'm able to recognize my wrong-mindedness, because it doesn't feel good. But what I also wanted to say is, this sentence is amazing. Forgiveness is an empty gesture unless it entails correction. And this isn't from the course, but people might be able to relate to this, that it's sort of like an apology without change is kind of like manipulation, or put any word you want in there, but without change, which is the correction, it's empty. So that was really helpful for you to point that sentence out to me. Yeah, it's just empty. So thanks.
Yeah. And there's no guilt here. So, I mean, I'm
No,
sharing that
yeah.
I did this for years. I caught myself doing this, not because I intended to waste time, but because really I was confused. I lacked understanding. And that's why we're in this group together, to become clear and bring understanding and appreciation to a set of principles that go completely opposite to the way the world teaches and the way we were originally approaching things in life. So it is a learning journey, and these are fundamental principles for it. Richard? You're on mute.
Here,
There you go.
one thing I learned, and one was the superficial, I'm sorry, to what someone said to me once: when you forgive someone and maybe even make an amend, I apologize and I avail myself to that individual. How can I make it right? This way I'm willing to follow through, and I'm just not yipping at someone. For me, the word forgive, I was listening to a tape last night. Gary Renard, I think his name is. And he was talking about forgiveness. And when I learned to forgive, I'm back into God's world, or this world of, I guess, no attachment. Whether it's not a permanent thing, but it comes and goes, it's elusive. Well, when I experience, I see the fallacy of what my ego was trying to attempt to do.
Right.
I know one thing that I learned, and I'm not saying that I got a storeroom filled with learning material, because I don't. Forgiveness is a gift I give myself.
Yes.
And the other thing was, if I'm really sincere, all the good things I want for myself, I want that other person to have too.
Yes.
So I'm putting my stock out there. Now, I'm not saying I do it all the time, and I know when I do it, it's like mind-blowing. Cannot be explained. I can only experience it. In this way, I don't have to rush home, eat something to make myself feel better, or pat myself on the back. It's just an acknowledgement without an explanation when I apply that. And my lab used to be really low. Now it's only getting about three rungs to it. But before it was like sky high. I feel it today. So,
Thank you, brother.
anyway.
Thank you, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's number 5. Learn to pair forgiveness with correction. Correction only comes from the Holy Spirit, but you have to be willing to let go of your original confusion that was in your mind. David, comment?
This is kind of mundane. Can you give a concrete example of how you have done this in your life?
Oh, yeah. So when you're working with this program, your mind becomes more sensitive. You pick up on things that you might have missed before. So, for instance, let's say I go to a 12-step program and someone is confessing something about their life, about errors they've made. And I'm listening to them pour out their heart. And my mind is more sensitive to these errors. And so I notice them, I pick up on errors. And if it stops there, no correction has occurred. I'm essentially been judging the other person for things that I recognize in myself as well. But essentially what I'm doing is my focus is, as you would say, David, on the darkness, the confusion, the lack of understanding. The way to heal is then we must turn to the Holy Spirit after we say, hey, I've done that before. There's no guilt in doing those things. But turn to the Holy Spirit brings about a qualitative shift in awareness from wrong-minded to right-mindedness. And that shift entails a charity towards the other person. Charity in the sense that we read about it in A Course in Miracles, where you believe in the perfection of another person before they believe in it themselves. And that is altogether, that's the right-minded state. That's altogether different than noticing the errors. So I don't know if that was the perfect example, but I think you get a sense of the qualitative shift into the corrected state or the right-minded state. And I'm sharing, I did this for many years and thought I was practicing the Course. But what I was really practicing is called here an empty gesture that's essentially judgmental rather than healing. So I share this not to berate myself or the past, but to try to be helpful. Don't miss this essential principle here. You must shift out of wrong-mindedness and into right-mindedness in order to bring a miracle of healing about. Noel?
We're all so sincere, and I have the feeling we're all working hard to understand the correspondences, the terms. Sometimes I get weary and I would just like to relax and yield. That's one of my favorite words. Not that I do it very well all the time, but just yield to the Holy Spirit and let in the ideas and the corrections instead of affirming all the time and correcting and this and this and that. Just relax.
Yeah. I really like where you're going with that, Noel, because it is a deeper state that is way beyond affirmations and thoughts and words. These recent lessons 45 through 50 are about sinking down below the conversational level that goes on in our mind to a deeper state that is deeply relaxing. And that's where the acceptance of the atonement really occurs. It's not up here in the busy state where chatter is occurring and we're just adding more better chatter. Maybe we're affirming a miracle lessons, but it's still in the state of mind that's full of a chatterbox. So I like where you're going with that. We need to learn to sink down into the place where the truth exists within us. I just wanted to read you something from workbook lesson 49. It says, it says, oh, the part of your mind in which truth abides in constant communication with God. That part, Noel, is very restful, as you know. But the part of us that is busy working and trying is more of our superficial consciousness. And we need to learn to distinguish those levels. So this is the intermediate level, intermediate phase of level confusion, is learning within your own mind to distinguish wrong-mindedness from right-mindedness from that deeper state that is in constant communication with God. That's not the topic for today so much, but that's where we're headed. Susie?
So that sentence for me, forgiveness is an empty gesture unless it entails correction. You know, unless it entails correction means that for me, that I'm asking the Holy Spirit to heal whatever I've done to myself or to somebody else. And when I'm healed, which would be correction, I don't have those thoughts or those desires to do whatever I was doing before, sorry. So unless it entails correction, for me means a miracle, a change in my thinking and a real healing. So I won't keep doing it because then it's an empty gesture.
Right. Yep. You got it. And that's really the next principle works hand in glove with this. So Heidi, I'm going to go on and take your comment first after we read the next one.
Miracle-minded forgiveness is only correction. It has no element of judgment at all. The statement, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," in no way evaluates what they do. It is an appeal to God to heal their minds. There is no reference to the outcome of the error. That does not matter.
No element of judgment at all, no evaluation, no lamentations, no storytelling, no residual guilt, just free. That's what to forgive is to free your mind from all of that and enter into a different state of mind where there is only healing. As someone pointed out earlier, this can only come about by training your mind to do this. Just allowing your mind to wander wherever it goes is referred to in the course as mind wandering. We need to learn to watch our mind, to guard our thoughts, and avoid these traps of old judgmental consciousness. And then through workbook lessons, train our minds to find and fall in love with that state of mind that is at peace. So Heidi, I said I would take your comment next.
Yeah, it seems to me that by doing the lessons daily and practicing them, the principles are falling into place.
They are.
I mean, it's just amazing to me. I feel like reading this, I got it. And I only get it because I practice it by doing the lessons. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think you said it very well, Heidi. In other places, it says, without the text, it would, and I think everybody's understood this. The lessons, we really don't know, where are we going with this? What's this all about? Why am I doing this at all? Saying that this table has no meaning. Without the text, you don't understand the map. So the text gives you the map and motivates you to want to reach that goal. But the lessons teach you the walk, how to walk the talk. And they are vital to it. And someone whose name I won't mention this week said to me, this is my 4th year and I thought I could quit. I didn't have to do the lessons again a 4th time. And after 45 days realizes that their consciousness starts to drift away and lose focus. And this person was able to make a recommitment to doing the lessons again. It seems to be a vital way. Well, it is a vital to our mind training. All right, let me take number 7. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a couple of comments. Cheryl, you had your hand up?
Yes, hi. Great lessons. Yeah, I've learned in my spiritual practice, and I believe there's just one truth. Course in Miracles is one way of speaking the truth. That my recovery, in terms of my spiritual recovery, is just a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition. So if I don't, walk the walk, I can talk the talk, it can start with that. But if I don't walk the walk, then, I'm not in a reprieve from what I'm trying to get away from, which is the ego and the lower self, and, where the unhappiness and the disconnection comes from. So I just wanted to add that it really is, it's a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition. So I have to practice. And lastly, I'll admit I'm extremely judgmental. And, when judging something, if I don't, further that thought with something, positive of, or love or forgiveness, of myself or others, and then I'm unhappy. Then I feel alone and disconnected. And that's not my goal. I want to be happy, joyous, and free. So, this is all part of the process.
Right. Oh, thank you for that, Cheryl. You mentioned about judgment. So at the end of this chapter is a section called The Last Judgment. And we as a group will encounter it next Saturday morning. And Cheryl, it's an amazing, it is not what you think. It's an amazing reversal of the ideas. And it talks about a vision of getting to the point where we make our final judgment against ourselves and then become free of judgment after that. So I would really hope that you are able to participate in that.
I'll be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, you have a comment? Make it quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
One thing I've got to be careful with, and I say this, I can't deflate my ego with my own intelligence. It takes outside events, outside influences, meaning if I don't share some of this work that I'm doing with someone else, the danger is I'm competing with my own ego, and I'm really in trouble when that happens. That's what's going on with me now. I'm actually talking to people about what's going on in me and using this material, and not the constant jibber jabber, but I'm finding a resting place where I always wanted to be, inside. So I don't, I'm not looking for approval, but I'm hoping I'm heading in the right direction.
Mhm.
I don't mind to self-disclose, not in detail, but conceptually,
Mhm.
what's going on. And I do get confirmation.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll do it and I'm anxious to do it, but I don't want to do it. And I do it anyway. And the outcome is always different than what I projected.
Right, right. All right, thank you, my brother. Okay, number 7 in our list of principles.
The injunction, be of one mind, is the statement for revelation readiness. My request, do this in remembrance of me, is the appeal for cooperation from miracle workers. The two statements are not in the same order of reality. Only the latter involves an awareness of time, since to remember is to recall the past in the present. Time is under my direction, but timelessness belongs to God. In time, we exist for and with each other. In timelessness, we coexist with God.
Mhm. So we're talking about 2 orders of reality, one in time, which is where our focus is, but we don't want to ignore that timeless state of perfection, the original state that still lies deep within you, where you are in constant communication with truth and with God. We want to recognize both. And this course is to restore our consciousness more completely to that state of timelessness. One of the ways in which that is done briefly, not permanently, but briefly, is in the experience of revelation. And so how are we to attain revelation would be direct communication from God. We talked about the 7 different forms of communication in a previous discussion. So in order to receive a direct communication from God, your mind needs to be ready. You can't be in some chaotic state. My own experience is most frequently occurs at 3 or 4 in the morning because I'm completely, after I've slept, because my focus is on nothing else. I feel perfectly relaxed and rested and comfortable. And for some reason, my mind opens more readily then than it does when I'm all busy with other things. So we're called a revelation readiness state of mind. And I'm not saying it can only happen in the deep hours of the morning, but many people have testified that they had a profound experience during those hours. And because their mind was ready. Miracles are different than that. Miracles are aids to help us move in that direction, but miracles are experiences in time where we share and help and heal each other, whereas revelations and God are in a timeless state where their boundaries of separate selves do not exist, and there's an awareness of a one self, of a united self, creation and creator united together. You could say we coexist with God in that state. It is the state of atonement. It is a state that exists deep within you, below the surface of these confused levels where healing occurs. Okay. Comments about that? And then let's do number 8 here.
You can do much on behalf of your own healing and that of others if, in a situation calling for help, you think of it this way. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal.
So these are principles for miracle workers, and healing is the function, healing in time is the function of the miracle worker. And so so there's a orientation, a purpose to one's existence, to one's life. And this captures the spirit of it. Here to be truly helpful, only to be truly helpful and to represent the creator. And lower order concerns, I do not need to be occupied with lower order concerns. I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do, because I trust that if I'm present in the moment, I'll be directed, guided by Holy Spirit. And therefore, in a state of contentment, peace, content to be whatever he wishes, confident, not doubtful, but knowing that the Spirit goes with me and I myself will receive healing in the process of letting him teach others how to heal. It's a giving and receiving are one in the truth. To have, give all, to all. If we are involved in healing, both the receiver and the giver both are lifted at the same time. And this is also reflected in an often quoted passage from Workbook 71. It's an attitude that frees us from any judgments, any concerns about the inadequacy of our own ability to function in this role, and frees us of any concerns about having to figure out what to say or do in advance, to predict what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So this is really captures the spirit of the healing mind. Let's take a few comments here. Cheryl?
I really love this. I screenshotted it because I'm on my phone most of my life. So that's good. And, instead of maybe looking at Facebook, Instagram, I'll look at this. No, it's really great. I mean, this is definitely the spirit of it, and it's very helpful. And I know that in the past, I've been programmed to think of my response, and a lot of people do this while somebody else is talking, not even knowing, entirely what they're going to say, but already formulating my response. And that doesn't keep me in the present. So this sort of reminded me of that. It's like, just stay in the present. I'm not alone. I'm walking. The Holy Spirit's always with me, which has been my comfort for a lot of years. And it's just so much easier, because it's so difficult living in the past, trying to predict the future, what somebody's going to say or do. Just so much easier and less energy just being in the present, and such better quality life.
Indeed. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks.
Joy? You're muted, Joy. There you go.
I know. Takes me a while to get to the unmute button. I love this concept of being only truly helpful because I think from being adopted, I grew up with, a victim mentality and a lot of entitlement issues. I think my parents probably wanted to make me, I think I was special, being adopted. And so there was this dynamic of, if I cried enough, I could get what I wanted kind of thing. And I knew how to make my dad feel guilty, even as a little child and stuff. So as a result, I noticed this just such selfishness in me and ego and fear and all of that. And I dipped my toe into some 12-step work not that long ago. And one of the main messages that I was getting was, get out of yourself and contribute, help other people. So this course comes, is perfect for me. And at my job, this is a story I shared in another group, but I love it, is that in my job, I've never had to answer the phones until after Hurricane Ian. And now all the guys at my job are so busy with these flooring quotes that my boss gave me the job of answering every phone call. So I was not happy about that at all. And then I had a complete and total miracle change of perception with it. I don't know what happened. Holy Spirit came into my mind and showed me, wow, every time I answer the phone, I'm connecting with a brother or sister. And when I thought about it that way, all of a sudden now I love it. Every time the phone rings, I picture me picking it up and connecting with a brother and sister and connecting with everyone in the world. And I just stop what I'm doing and I answer the phone and I have a smile on my face. And people keep telling me, you are so helpful. Thank you so much. You're so helpful. And so I really am in love with that part of this course. I really am in love with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. It was a lovely story. Heidi?
Yeah, I think the wonderful thing about this, I screenshotted it as well, is that I use this for myself as well as when I'm speaking to others. I try to use these sentences every time I have a situation come up. This is where I go to for me. So this is really wonderful because we get to use it for ourselves and others.
It is. As a matter of fact, many people have memorized this portion from Workbook 71.
Right.
You may find it as a go-to to remind you if you memorize it. Bonnie, you said your hand was up?
Yeah, about 10 years ago, I was at a Unity conference and there was a poster there with these words on it. I'm here only to be truly helpful. And it affected me so deeply. I bought the poster and I had it framed. And every time in the last 10 years, I have any kind of doubt or question as to why I'm here, I go back to the poster. In fact, I have memorized the poster so I can keep it with me day in and day out.
Wow, that's really amazing. And here it is now.
Yeah.
I'm only here to be truly helpful.
Yeah, why am I here? What is my mission? What's my job here? What am I supposed to be doing? And when I saw that 10 years ago, I thought, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I decided to memorize it and just use it as a kind of mantra.
What a gift.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Mhm.
Noel?
I love these lines also. I'm going to put them on my homepage, in fact. And it occurs to me too, that to fulfill these principles, it's a matter of trust, to stay in the present, not to, as somebody said, think about what my response will be, or judge them quietly in the corner, but to just trust that the right words and thoughts will be given to me. In that regard, when I prepare to talk to someone, Joy reminded me of this too, because most of my interactions are on the phone, email, of course, but often the first interaction is on the phone. And before that, I always have a prayer that says, let me be what they want me to be, what they need me to be. And that helps open up, helps me open up.
Wonderful. Thank you. So several testimonies there of how people are able to use this to bring them into the right state of mind, to be helpful to others. I know it's helped me, the one from the workbook 70, or lesson 71. I'm sure I've used it many, many hundreds of times, just as a reminder to bring my focus back of why am I here? So that will be a major theme that will be picked up on again and again. What is the purpose for my being in this time, space, incarnation? And the Course of Miracles says that everything pivots around your sense of purpose, and that is transformative once we align our purpose with the purpose that the Creator had in mind for us. When we unite our will with the will of the Creator, we share a common purpose that brings about all the gifts that the Creator intends for us to have become freely are manifest in our life. So that's as far as we're going to read today. We will elaborate on these themes. They will come up many times because they are fundamental to this program. But that's as far as we're going to read about them today. We'll continue on tomorrow and Monday with next sections after that, and then do the last judgment and be finishing the chapter next Saturday. Well, I didn't want to go with if that was your hand up, if you had a comment. You're on mute, brother.
So I had something I wanted to say from the beginning, and I hope it's okay to inject it at this point. This is called A Course in Miracles. And in the beginning of the meeting, we talked about miracles. And for me, on my spiritual journey and my recovery from being an alcoholic, recognizing miracles has played a huge part in who I am today and the gratitude I have today. And I remember it starting out, just starting to see them every once in a while. And then as I looked closer, I saw that these miracles were happening all around me. And so today I'm blessed to live in a world where so much of what I see is a miracle. And it reinforces my belief in my own spirituality and the fact that, there is a higher power out there through the astounding miracles I've seen, not necessarily in magnitude, just in terms of relevance. And And it's been very, very powerful and a huge part of where I've been able to get today as a person and as a recovering person. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, thank you for saving that at the end here. I don't think we could end on a more positive note than that. So thank you all. Namaste.
Namaste.
Love
Michael,
y'all. Have a
Michael,
wonderful
if you
day.
have a few minutes, Michael, can you hang around on the chat?
Yes.
Okay.